That was the turning point for me when I saw technology help individuals in real life. It's not just about making a sale, it's about making a positive impact and a really good difference within the world itself. At the end of the day, we don't even realize how many people's lives we're impacting, even that we're directly working with, just from the system being so flexible and intuitive from a user perspective, but also from like a consultant, developer, and solution architecting perspective.
Welcome to Salesforce Radio, your destination for insights, news, and community connections within the dynamic Salesforce ecosystem.
Welcome to Salesforce Radio. Today we are proud to host our new friend from South Africa, Emmanuel Fousteris, coming all the way from South Africa and currently a managing consultant at PwC. Did I get that right?
Correct, yeah. PwC South Africa.
Beautiful. So yeah, Emmanuel, thanks for coming on to Salesforce Radio. Really a pleasure to have you. Always fun to have consultants from the ecosystem. It's also always fun to have someone who I don't really know their story, and we're looking forward to getting a little bit of that today and learning a little bit about you and what you do. So yeah, maybe just a little introduction to start, and then we can jump right in.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Yeah, firstly, thank you for the invite onto the show. Titan, obviously, a great platform, making Salesforce easier. So when I was asked to come onto the platform, or the podcast rather, jumped at the opportunity. You've had some great guests in before. So I just thought I'd make a good effort and run a good show for the fans. But about me, my background, so I actually started off graduating in economics and investments management with econometrics on the statistical side from the University of Johannesburg. From there, you find your career path, you find your way. Started off in finance, then I moved into brand and marketing, did a bit of a stint within sales, and then found my gap within the financial technology space in my previous position. Funny enough, getting to Salesforce, I was at a farewell, and some of my friends were immigrating, and I'd met up with a friend of mine who was a CTO at a big tech company, and he said, so what are you doing with yourself these days? I'm like, no, I'm working at a tech company. So he's like, oh, great, which one? And I was like, well, I just mentioned the company's name. And then he said, well, what platforms are you working on? So I said, well, we use Salesforce now. We've been given partner access to Salesforce. So he was like, oh, great. He said to me within that moment, he said, look, he's not continuing in his current path. He was a CA, getting a lot of the financial technology things under his belt. He said he's moving into the Salesforce ecosystem, enjoying the financial and tech space there. So Salesforce being a natural progression, sales with all its additional modules and expansive capabilities, he just felt it the right way to move forward. And he said to me, look, you're quite technical, you're quite good at consulting, you're good at sales. I mean, it could be the perfect combination of skills and talents. And yeah, I got certified a year later. Then a year after that, I managed to wangle my way into my first position, and it's been a good road ever since, especially with the Salesforce HANA coming in. Everyone being so helpful, new certification, new technology. It's pretty much the right path to move forward in terms of growth and trajectory. Yeah, so it's been a great journey so far.
I love that. And how many years ago was that?
So that was, I got my administrator cert in 2021. So I think just closing out 3 to 4 years. Yeah.
Cool. And so what was your relationship to Salesforce at that moment that he said, hey, what systems are you using? You had partner access. What was your relationship to the system? Had you kind of been inside of it? Had you just used it were you sharing a user with someone? Like, what did you know about Salesforce at that moment?
Yeah, good question. Firstly, no, never sharing a user. Security 101. Just as an end user, we were given the platform. We're like, hey, this is how you're going to log your leads. This is how you're going to convert your lead to a thing called an opportunity. And there's this contact and an account. Make sure you fill in all the details in the required fields. We're like, great. Then once I'd got the hang of things, I was like, guys, I can help you here. So I would sit with our Salesforce admin on our side and in a few meetings with with the individuals on their team. And I'd say, look, I think my guys could benefit more from using this type of report. So if you could piece this information in a certain dashboard, the UI is a bit too clunky. Can you change it? And I would sit with them and piece it together. And that's when the administrator pathway sort of revealed itself to me. When I was like, so my friend had mentioned that it's a good way to move forward. The meetings with the administrators that come pretty good handy in there. But I'll tell you a quick story. So the penny drop moment for me was I was part of a scouting organization when I was younger, many years ago. What happened was during COVID, when I was there, the numbers were strong. It was very good. The actual individual who was hosting it at the time, since I'd left during COVID, had posted a few pictures and being like, look, the scouting organization isn't doing too well. So I contacted her and I said, hey, what's going on here? What's happening? She's like, look, Scouts being a an in-person, youth development activity. Of course, COVID giving it quite a bad knock. People aren't coming back. Went from about 150 people down to 12 people. It's quite concerning for me. I mean, I'd grown up there, I'd made some lifelong friends there as well. So what I said to her was, okay, so herself being a web developer, myself being on the Salesforce side, I said, let me actually try and help you. So what I did was I approached a couple of individuals, managed to get the non-profit Salesforce enterprise system going. Yeah, so that came out quite nicely. Then what she did on her side was obviously update the website. So we managed to plug a lot of the activities that they do on a weekly and weekend basis into the website. Did a bit of SEO, built a bit of a stronger website, punted it more as a weekend activities for children as opposed to just a scouting organization. And eventually it just started picking up, thank goodness. The marketing went out, everything went a lot stronger. So now I think it's grown to about 120 individuals, 130. They've also generated a secondary revenue stream by doing weekend activities, having them on TripAdvisors. If tourists come through and they want to do a bit of an outdoorsy experience in the wild, take them on a camping trip, allow them to track some animals, get them a bit more hand-on experience. And then that was the turning point for me when I saw technology help individuals in real life. It's not just about making a sale, it's about making a positive impact and a really good difference within the world itself. Yeah, and it just came all together for me. And then I was like, great, I'm going to go down this path and been here ever since.
That's an awesome story. How long, what was the amount of time that passed from when you kind of got them started with Salesforce till now? How long has that been?
So it was about 2 years. Yeah. So I still actually do a bit of work for them on the back end. It's mainly like a maintenance voluntary role because I built the system from scratch and having that come through. So yeah, it was about a year or two that it took mainly for the marketing to kick off and get the word out that, we're not just a squad scouting organization. We're very much an activities-driven experience kind of organization as well. And so, yeah, a lot of the recurring people that came back were within the area, new faces that were actually just wanted to sign their kids up and be like, it's great what you guys are doing here. How you've sort of built it and brought it back, from the midst of peril through COVID. And yeah, it took about a year or two. And thank goodness, it's just really, with the good Lord's help, it's just come out quite strongly and nicely.
This is an amazing story. And I'll tell you why it's important to me, because I've spoken to so many nonprofit organizations that have used Salesforce. Some of them, they came onto it because they just heard about it. They heard, hey, we can get free licenses. And then it became a bit of a nuisance because they didn't really know how to use it. And then maybe they didn't get as lucky as this organization did with you. And the volunteer, admin they got just made a mess. And then they end up finding themselves paying consultants to fix this mess for them. And it still gets harder and harder to show some return on investment in Salesforce from a time perspective, from a effort perspective, from a money perspective. Whereas it sounds like you were able to, within the span of 2 years, show them something really positive from Salesforce. And probably at this point, they're like, yeah, this is something we should be investing in more. I mean, have they taken any other steps to invest in Salesforce? Have they gone beyond those 10 user licenses at this point? I mean, are they also paying Salesforce for different services?
That's a great question, actually. So it's a double-edged sword. On the one end, these individuals like myself were professionals. A lot of them come from an accounting background, a legal background, some of them from management consulting roles. So they had exposure to the system as well, which made it a lot easier for the adoption to take place from their side, because they knew, okay, great, Salesforce, how are we going to use it here? They knew exactly what they wanted in terms of reports and dashboards, how are we growing, what are we using the system for essentially. And when the organization started growing, being it confined to the non-profit modules didn't really have an impact in terms of them purchasing anything additional from Salesforce directly. But going back to their organization saying, look, hey, our admin on this side at this scouting organization we work with has managed to piece together ABC. Is there any way we could use this? And then coming from my actual work life, having that type of experience more in the financial services, a lot of the sales and service clouds came in. There was an instance of Experience Cloud, which is obviously very strong in terms of engaging with customers. That came out quite nicely. So indirectly, yes, I mean, it's fostered good relationships. I've managed to close some deals with these consultants and these management houses to do more business. So I think it's the whole, giving back and then receiving at a stage. It actually worked out quite nicely. So the knock-on effect was actually quite exponential in terms of having things come full circle and just work out in my favor, but also being able to give back and help those people in different aspects of their lives.
Yeah, I've spoken to countless nonprofit organizations, And as I said, some have been on Salesforce for a long time. Some are just getting involved. And, today when a nonprofit gets involved with Salesforce, they are investing a little bit more. And they kind of, I think, realize, because maybe the people also have experience from other parts of their business life or from other nonprofits. So yeah, if we're going to use this, it's not worth it just to, think it's a free tool. It's worth it to invest in it. It's worth it to get a partner, worth it to do this kind of stuff. It's sometimes still hard for them to see
absolutely
where they're getting value. And it's an amazing case study, what you just said. And I hope that people are listening to this that can really realize that with the proper, resources invested in their Salesforce work, they can go farther. And I've also seen that so many times, right? It's not just this is difficult. Why did we sign up? It's actually also, hey, this is really a tool that's helping us progress in what we're doing. And in this case, kind of bring the organization back to life, which I think is awesome. So that's the nonprofit side. Tell me a little bit about what you've done for work in the Salesforce space and how you got to being a consultant today.
I'll pick it up again from the point where I actually landed my first Salesforce role. So I was working quite extensively as the administrator for this nonprofit organization, as well as moving into the more hands-on and responsibility-given approach within the organization I was working for, in my career. That was a fintech company. Once I got certified as an admin, I wanted to spread my wings, really wanted to get involved in Salesforce, see where it could take me. So I started attending a few career days, reaching out to some companies, consultancies locally as well as abroad. It was actually a bit easier, dare I say, back then to break into the system, the ecosystem that it is now. Obviously, with new technology coming out, you'll get your curve reaching a plateau and then sort of stabilizing out. Obviously open to interpretation, a lot more experience needed now, but still happening and still possible for anyone out there who's watching this that is just starting out in Salesforce. Feel free to reach out to me. I can give you my little career guide on how to do that. But once I got certified, I attended a Salesforce career day, which was held virtually because we're still during COVID times. And I was in many of these virtual rooms with a lot of the big consultancy houses, and I'm talking, big four, a lot of the banking institutions, how they use Salesforce itself, what modules are they using. And I actually became a bit more proactive in that session. It was the first time, being an extrovert, I really wanted to engage with people, but being locked in my house was a bit difficult. So having a chance to talk to people even virtually in this sort of quick fire manner, it was great. I would just go into a room, they'd introduce themselves, what they do. And then I had actually made a list of all the individuals that I engaged with. And then what I did actually was I went and spun up a dev org and logged them all as leads. And I put them as little, opportunity stages in there, or like lead stages. Okay, so this one they got logged in, everyone was managed, I set up follow-up tasks, just re-engage with them. And I added them on LinkedIn as well, just trying to be as engaging as possible. So what happened at one stage, I had a good conversation with one of the initial recruiters. And she was like, great, I want to put you in for a certain position. The next day she says to me, nope, sorry, unfortunately, someone else got this position. Thank you for trying though. I said, no, it's great, but I did log follow-up tasks in future, etc. So I had a few discussions with everyone. Things seemed a bit gloomy. I wasn't really getting anywhere, lack of actual Salesforce experience. Well, I'd build an entire org. A lot of the people, even on the non-profit side, no, we don't like exposing the org. Please don't take people to demos. I'm like, okay, it's fine. Obviously asking for permission first. Then about a month later, I got a reminder on my dev org just saying, oh, you need to follow up with this recruiter from the company. And so what I did was I sent her an email. I'm like, hey, this is just a quick follow-up, seeing how things are going at the company. I see a lot of activity on LinkedIn. Great things growing, everything, et cetera, Is there anything available on the consulting side? She said, look, so it was a very generic response. Look, I'm sorry, there's nothing available. We've got your file on hand. Please keep checking in on the career page on the website. And if anything comes up, I'll let you know. Great. So that was on the Monday. The next day, on the Tuesday, she sends me a quick email. She's like, Emmanuel, I think I might have something for you. I'm like, okay, well, this is exciting stuff, with what you got. She's like, the consultant who had joined didn't really have the relevant experience that they had said they did. They were much stronger in other areas of software stack, but Salesforce wasn't their primary strength. We'd like to probably just give you an opportunity to chat to one of our managers and see how it could go. Great stuff. So I said, absolutely. So got in a call. The recruiter was there with the manager. He was quite happy because I also had some dev experience in Python coding. I'd done a boot camp at some stage, so he's like, great, this could come in handy with Experience Cloud, et cetera. And instead, I didn't even know what Experience Cloud was. I was like, yes. And then he's like, great, I'm going to set up a technical interview with you. We're just going to go through a couple of things. I was like, okay, we can do that. So 2 weeks later, we did the technical interview. He was very happy, of course. Very nice guy, though. So we had a bit of an open chat. We had some common interests, as you know, just for example, music. So I produce music. He's a drummer and a guitarist. That was a lovely conversation. And then it also started to reiterate the fact to me that the people within the Salesforce ecosystem are not just techies that are locked behind a screen in a dark room in the basement. We are normal people, individuals, and you can see just by, if you're Googling a help article or something that you're stuck with online, for example, there's comments like, oh, you know, post us a link, give us an image, let's try to help you out. And then that was also quite reassuring. And then, yeah, from there, my first Salesforce gig, 2 weeks later, they were like, great, you know, come through, we're happy with you, final senior executive meeting. No, you're great, you're cool. And yeah, I think that's really what kickstarted the show. Yeah, so it's been quite a ride since there.
I love it. And yeah, I really resonate with a lot of that, and especially that last part where you said, because there is something to that. And anyone who's listened to, you know, a number of these episodes of this podcast or knows the ecosystem knows that everyone's come from so many different places. And as opposed to someone who, spent their life learning computer science, which of course nothing wrong with, but it's a different approach, and it's a different worldview when you came to something, you know, by means of so many other different experiences that you have. And then all of a sudden, you know, you want to help, you want to be involved. It's less competitive, you know, it's a less competitive, obviously the job market's competitive, but it's not, you're not competing against the other people in the ecosystem, which I think is really cool. Maybe on Trailhead, you know, some people are doing that, but
that's Power Rangers. Yeah, it's a thing.
But other than that, you know, it's like, it's everyone does really want to help each other. And I think, the persistence that you obviously had in that story is great, right? And I love the way you use the dev work. I mean,
yeah.
If anyone else has used dev work that way, I want to hear about it. You come on the podcast and tell me about it, because that's just a great way. Obviously, you know, you can't save too many images of people there, because then the dev work, you know, will get filled up with storage. But
exactly.
As long as you have not too many leads and not too much information, you're good to go. And
yeah.
And
more like a description box, like a free text box with like a round your eyes.
Right. Okay.
You'd be great on the phone or whatever. It's too bad when you're speaking to I'd be recruited at any given stage. Yeah, it's got to work. Solutioning, right? The solution.
Exactly. And so these organizations that you work for, are they all based in South Africa?
No. So a few of them had been quite overseas strong. We had built a base here and needed some assistance on their orgs. But quite a few of them were from international clients. Yeah, I don't think I can divulge names here, but they ranged from a vast majority of financial technologies, pharmaceuticals, earth moving and bulldozing equipment, just to name a few. Some of the really bigger ones, you know, vehicle manufacturers, all-terrain vehicle manufacturers, and yeah, the health and pharmaceuticals is also a big one. But I did find my niche, given my background in economics, and investment management within financial services. So yeah, it's sort of where I've honed my skills, but not limited to. Obviously, understanding the ecosystem as well. You can be great at one thing, but be able to do many other different things. You know, just getting a certification, dabbling a bit. Trailhead is a great module. And if someone comes to you, says to you, look, I need this fixed or this built, or how am I going to do this? Many of the times the things you've done previously actually come to light. You're like, I can actually just sort of modify this in a certain way that will help you out. And I haven't seen that flexibility on many other systems. I mean, there are other cloud platforms that are also extremely strong. And when I look at how they do certain things, I say to myself, but why have they done it this way? And then I realize that Salesforce comes in with a very different thinking pattern, you know, object-orientated, for example, different cascading elements that sort of piece into each other without needing to have an integration. Perfect example. In my previous company, we had to build an entire integration, not using MuleSoft. It was another company that wanted to use their own devs. And then our solution architect was from the, I think, Google or AWS side. And he said, okay, look, I just need you to build the flow to do this. And then I'm going to pick up the data. And I said, I can literally build everything you need in the flow. And he's like, what do you mean? Well, I said, okay, let me just show you. And then when I pieced everything together, how I grabbed these different elements, now with Omni Studio as well coming into play, it just fell together so nicely. And he just looked at me, he's like, I think you just did 90% of my job for me. I'm like, well, you're welcome. You know, go spend some time with your family after that. So he was also quite impressed with how we had worked and done that type of, that I did that approach there. Yeah. And then the team that I had back behind me was just incredible. So I think at the end of the day, we don't even realize how many people's lives we're impacting, even that we're directly working with, you know, just from the system being so flexible and intuitive. from a user perspective, but also from like a consultant, developer, and solution architecting perspective. Yeah.
I think that's great. And I think also one of the things I picked up on is that it's also important to really be on top of the new things that Salesforce is doing, right? Because if you're working back 5 years ago, the way you would do things, maybe you didn't need the developer to do that whole project. Maybe you needed, all that stuff. But because of the way that you're thinking, hey, let's use the new tools, let's do what what Salesforce is offering right now, you're able to cut down the development time. You're able to cut down 90% of the project and build it in a flow. Whereas, if you're a little bit lazier and you don't know, you're not staying up on the biggest updates in Salesforce, you don't know that you can accomplish all of that. And I think that's really big. Going back to the financial services field where you have the most expertise, what do you think is some of the biggest challenges that organizations in the financial services space are facing these days that are on Salesforce?
So that's a great question. And recently I took a look at the financial services cloud. I'm up to renew mine shortly. And the way that the system has changed quite vastly shows how the industries are changing themselves. So, of course, some of the challenges are understanding your customer. It's a very archaic way of thinking in terms of the original, let's say, banking or financial services. You've got a broker and he offers you products according to, your income, your needs, your diverse taste in assets, or how you want to generate income and revenue. And then he sorts of pieces that stuff together. Whereas now I've seen the new things coming out of just the industry in general is that it's got the multifaceted approach. And that's where the whole customer 360 view comes in. And everyone is like, okay, but what does that mean? It's like literally what it means. Like, I'm going to know if you've had a baby. Will you be able to, achieve your milestones in terms of your savings when you need to help them with their graduation or, college fund, et cetera, on the one end. So that's helping end customers. On the simplified end for the companies themselves, that they get a better understanding of what their clients want, especially now with open banking coming in very strongly. So for those of you who don't know open banking is basically just where you allow institutions to better monitor and track your spending habits, your different types of the way you interact with financial services companies in general, and they can better build customized solutions for you. So that's open banking, and that's given range to a whole, the birth of a whole new range of products. For example, digital assets. So obviously, cryptocurrencies being the one thing, you can better manage and understand how your clients are using those. What are they actually trying to do with them? Is it more of like an asset where they want to save money and put it there, for future growth, et cetera, et cetera. With now the NFTs that have also gone by incredibly, well, I'd say top and bottom, right? That's a whole different discussion we can have. But it allows organizations to sort of better understand everything that the clients are doing, especially data cloud as well. So I recently got the data cloud certification. That's a whole different architecture that we got to bring in now. And all our clients are like, oh, we want data cloud architecture. We're like, well, would you need it? You don't actually need it, but you may need it in future. So we can build the org, future-proof it. So when you do need data cloud to come in and you've got all those multiple different sources of data coming in, if you're not just housing it all in Salesforce, data cloud is going to be your go-to. And the way to structure all of this massive amounts of data, it actually, like when I first looked at the Trailhead modules and structure around that, I actually got quite intimidated. I'm like, this is insane. The data models are huge, but the way it simplifies everything greatly is perfect, because then I can go back to my clients within the financial services space or any other space and be the go-to for them to understand and be like, okay, so Emmanuel knows what's going on, or the consultants in his team understand. Because the one thing you don't want to do is become the company or the space where your platform is incredible. People are so impressed by it, but you can't help your clients use it. And that, I think, is the biggest disconnect in many places. Going back to the whole volunteer position within nonprofit organizations, I've seen that happen. The guys need experience, or the ladies also, and anyone needs experience in the space. It's easy to approach a nonprofit organization. I can get you licenses, better manage your data. But if you haven't had that exposure, because even nonprofit, the architecture is different. You're using personal accounts, you're doing very different things. So if you come from a very financial technologies-based background and you're going into a nonprofit who does, I don't know, selling of handmade embroidery, you're going to have to take this on with a different approach. You know what I mean? Because the products are different, but also the clientele is different. So I also had a stint as in sales at some stage. I did some work in the UK, and then I got back here. I didn't know what to do, and I bumped into a friend of mine. He's like, what are you doing now? So I said, no, I don't really know. I need a new challenge, He says, well, I'm going into sales. He also wanted a bit of a break from, the normal tech, finance, mundane life. And then he was like, why don't you join me? I said, no, okay, let's do this. So I got a call with the company. They phoned me up. They're like, great, we don't have any sales positions, but we've got some support positions. And I was like, I don't know if I can sit on the phone troubleshooting a product that I don't know initially. But I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a bash. And if it doesn't work out, we'll see how it goes. Great. I told you, Ben, 2 weeks on the phone as a support consultant. They were like, no, you talk way too much. We're going to get you into sales. So I was like, all right, dude. Great. It was the funniest thing ever. No, it was good. It was good. And then it was a bit of a confidence boost as well, because then it showed that I do have a way of understanding different concepts. They put me into different divisions. Back then it was still like desktop packages. Cloud products were still coming into the play. So when that company got their cloud platform officially launched within the country, myself and this friend of mine that had brought me to the company were tasked with growing that division. And thank goodness we did a good job. In a year and a half, I think we had grown it to about 58 individuals in there, both support and sales. And the revenue increased great, which is a good thing to have under your belt, because you also learn how to build a team, how you're going to structure your org now. And I was working closely with the admins on the Salesforce side, and I'm working with the executive committee. Stakeholder management, for anyone listening, is incredibly important in this space, because you can lose touch and lose sight of things very quickly from that higher up perspective, but also from a customer perspective. Because you got to remember, whether you're an employee, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a contracted consultant, you have clients in any aspect, and there's multiple different types of them. Even if you're at the top of your game, there's moving parts at the bottom. Unless you don't have your ear on the ground, it becomes very difficult to understand how to cope with that. What you mentioned earlier in terms of things moving so quickly and people not keeping up, I had a few managers in a couple of my other roles where they didn't keep up with the technology and they were still doing things differently. So when I would go and try and troubleshoot and learn, because it's always learn hands-on, so they were like, "Yeah, go figure it out and then come to me, and before we deploy it, we'll stress test." I'm like, okay. And then when I'd come back with a few of the iterations, for example, flows coming into light, a lot of the back-end things being pre-built, pre-existing flows that come with certain, for example, financial services cloud organizations, my managers were like, "Oh no, have they made this easy? Is this a standard feature or function now?" I'm like, "Yes, it is." And if you go and download some data tables from some other platforms that you need to sort of implement and push through as an install package. So they were quite happy to see that. And then that's when the penny dropped for me, like, okay, you need to keep on top of your game at all the levels, and just maintain your certs. Because that becomes quite a story as well. If there's like 5 and you want like a month to do that, so it's always good to keep your ear on the ground in that space.
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot to it, and the breadth of the ecosystem and the different places where you can be and hang out and where you can go and come back. I love always seeing the people who like work for Salesforce, then leave Salesforce, then come back to Salesforce. But it's something you don't see in a lot of companies, right? Where they let people back in, and it's like, hey, we know you got something over there, and let's bring it back to us, and let's see what we can do to make things better. Which I think is always pretty cool. And what's your team structure like these days? Like, how do projects come to you, and how does that work? What's day-to-day look like? So
day-to-day, it's a bit different compared to my previous role. Previously, it was very much just individual clients coming to us. They need a new org, or they need a few things done, updated from a managed services perspective. So my previous role, I started off as a managed support consultant and then moved into the consulting space. So again, I had to sort of work my way into that, such as I did with my previous sales experience. But day-to-day these days looks very different. I mean, we work on large enterprise clients, given PwC's vast network of consulting and management consulting arms, also strong in the financial space, auditing space. We do like to do things differently. We like to be tech-driven, human-led. We like to keep the element of people in mind when we are working on our clients. So day-to-day could be anything. It could just be, system maintenance. Are we working on new items that need to be introduced? Are we prioritizing? At some stage, are we doing damage control? Has something been broken? Was there a deployment done by another team that now affects our work? Have things been overwritten in the sandbox? Keep your backups, Very, very different. So that's from a very, day-to-day work perspective. And that's what I enjoy. But also in a personal space, what I also like to do on LinkedIn is I like to reach out to people. I recently put up a post and I said, is anyone looking to sort of get in the space? Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to provide any information, not just in a Salesforce perspective, but if you are unhappy where you are, reach out to me and I'll help you, because I think even at some point previously, I was unhappy where I was at any given moment. I've done, I think, 5 career changes, 5 different industries. It's not easy, but it's probably my hunting curiosity out there. And I think that's why tech and Salesforce is so great, because it's constantly changing and I'm constantly challenged. I'm not just sitting in one space, and everything is sort of set out in a framework, in an international standard. Yeah, so that's what I enjoy doing. I have a lot of one-on-ones with my teammates, my team members, even the new onboarders, the new joiners coming in. Like, how do I get to where you are? I'm like, just focus on what you're doing now. You will get noticed, but if you don't do what you've currently been tasked with, you can't expect to, be pushed up the ranks and be acknowledged for something that, well, essentially hasn't even happened. Yeah, so just show that you can do what you can do right now. And the future will unfold itself. You might be great at a certain thing you didn't even know you were great at, like financial services. I had no idea. Honestly, it's very different to the whole banking space, etc. But I enjoy it. Some guys are great at pharmaceutical industries and they focus on those. Some guys are great at CPQ architecture and they really just come in and knock the lights out there. And if you find something that interests you, put your hand up. Just don't be the person that's scared to say, hey, I'm interested in doing this. And that's what I did in my first Salesforce role as an end user. And then I moved into the admin space, like previously mentioned. So it's always good to keep your ears open, keep your eyes aware. And I think the team appreciates that, yeah. So wherever you can, just help out, give back, and your day-to-day becomes a bit easier as your team gets the confidence to just sort of run with something, and if they have an issue, come back to you.
Yeah, and you know what? I like hearing that. It sounds like, I get from you have a lot of energy. You're an extrovert. You said it out loud.
Admittedly.
I also admit that I'm an extrovert, hence why I'm enjoying, doing this podcast, and happy to talk to people, happy to have these conversations. But in a large organization, like PwC, or you end up sticking with a lot of these customers for a long time. And there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of meetings, a lot of times things are not moving so quickly. What I like hearing from you is it sounds like you're able to find the thread of energy through all of it. And you're not just, getting bored with each and every project. You're jumping around. You're able to be a bit dynamic within a space that sometimes can be a bit stagnant, from what I understand. I mean, it's not easy, when you're in a small consultancy. Sometimes you do a lot of projects every year. Sometimes the bigger partner agencies, you're only seeing several projects a year, and you're only working with so many customers. It can be a bit tedious, but somehow it sounds like you keep it interesting. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. And I think you have to at this stage of the game. When things are changing, people aren't keeping up to pace with what's happening. I mean, AI being thrown around constantly and everywhere and all over the place. So AI has been a thing for many years, right? It's just a whole bunch of data points, and now the system can interpret it better than we can. It's not that hard to understand. Obviously, the architecture behind it is absolutely incredible. Being opened by GPT to the general public was a game changer, and I think a lot of companies got a bit of a shock by that. So we have a lot of our clients coming to us. Okay, so how are we going to use this AI? We're like, you may not need to yet. Your system's doing great. you don't need to use AI. You might be paying for a product that you won't even use, and that's a big thing. A lot of the larger corporate clients are always like, they want the latest and greatest innovation to come and save their organization. That rhymed very well. I might coin that one as a trademark later, but I'll let you know. But essentially, a lot of the times, the things are moving very slowly. If a change has to be implemented within the bigger consultancies, the bigger companies, it's just the name of the game. And patience is a virtue, right? The more you can show an emotional intelligence or an EQ, as opposed to just I want to try and get things done, that's actually what you are there for. And that's why you're being employed by these massive organizations. And yes, it does get a bit tedious and mundane, admittedly so, but everyone does say that. So what are you going to do about it? Oh, no, I'm just going to sit here and complain. No, that's not really the right way to go about things. Okay, let me see how I can change it up. So what I did, and that's why I went and got Data Cloud, is to see what the new technology is going to be able to do. And we have actually found some use cases with a few of our clients where we might say, oh, we think this might be able to benefit you. Let us go and put together a solution, see how it's going to work for you, and then we can come back to you and present. And you tell us what you think, okay? Because as much as we're a company that handles these massive organizations, big projects, span 6 months to a year, everything went well, we have to acknowledge that at some point, on either side, things may go wrong. It's also how you handle those. Okay, maybe the system, that the way it was thought out, or the architecture isn't the way that it should have been done, but we've learned from that. And when we reapproach these organizations with a better solution and a better understanding of their needs, essentially, we're better able to sort of deliver. Because let's be honest, Ben, at some stage, clients often don't know what they want. They have an idea of what they want, and they expect us to come in and, sort of piece it all together for them. The amounts of times I've heard a company come back to us, the system isn't working the way we anticipated, but you should have known this having done your past experience. Like, you can drive your own car, right? But I can't drive it for you. I mean, if you get the latest model Tesla and they've updated something, I don't know how it's going to work, right? I mean, simple story. Last year I was at Dreamforce, right? So after Dreamforce, we had a great time. Went up San Francisco Tower. It was great. We'd met some of I actually shook hands with Mark Benioff. I stayed behind afterwards. His keynote, yeah. My manager looked at me. He's like, "Yeah, you're quite out there. Go meet your hero." And I was like, "Don't tempt me. I'll do it." He's like, "You will." So I actually went up there and I was like, just stood in the queue, like, little old Emmanuel. And funny enough, there was a couple of people in front of me and I just shook their hand and popped that on LinkedIn, and it was life changing. Yeah, it was a great experience just to see that, like, even at that level, you're with an individual who's been in the game for 2 years. So it's a super humbling experience, yeah. And I mean, Mr. Benioff is a giant, right? He's tall, so just looking at him, I was like,
yeah.
But he was very, you feel that energy, and I know that he's also quite big into meditation and sort of the spiritual side of things, and so am I. Besides being, a religious individual, spirituality is a thing for me. So also meditating. So I sort of picked up a good energy from him. I left there feeling like, again, reinforced that I'm on the right track, But then afterwards, I digress, back to my original story. After Dreamforce, I went through so I was in San Francisco. I went through to LA just to meet some of my friends that live there. And lo and behold, one of my friends got a Tesla. And I'd never been in a Tesla. It was great. Yeah, it was bells and whistles, absolutely beautiful. She's like, "Come, I'll take you down to Santa Monica Pier. We're going to go have lunch there." I'm like, "Oh, absolutely amazing." So we drive down, we're driving around in a Tesla, and then she parks the car and she climbs out. And I'm supposed to climb out, but anyone who's driven in a Tesla, there's no door handles, there's nothing. Little button you push and it pops the door out, and then you can push it. It's sort of, I think, a security mechanism. So she jumps out the car, locks the car, and starts walking away. So I don't know how to get out of this car now. So I'm just sitting there. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what to do. So I had to phone her. I'm like, "Hi, can you please open the door?" She's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot."
You remember me?
Yeah, I'm the guy that you drove here. Oh, so then, yeah, she came. She was obviously bursting out laughing, opened the door for me, etc. But like, moral of the story is, you don't know what you want until you get given a problem, or a problem is thrown at you. And
exactly.
I was almost going to break through the window at some stage. I'm like, "I want to get out this car. I need to get in the sunlight." And then just putting my hand up and saying, "Look, I think I need some help." Also helped in that situation my friend, like, "Okay, yeah, I just need to come back down to earth. Doesn't know how I get a simple car." But I mean, sometimes we think our clients don't know what they want, we also just have to be a bit humble and be like, "Okay, great, let's take it down back to base level." I think we got carried away in one direction. Let's try and understand each other a bit better. Yeah, and I think the fact that we can make changes in the system so quickly does help, yeah, because if the clients are smaller, we can help them. But again, with the larger clients, put it in and see how quickly it can roll. Yeah. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's not, but it's just the game we play. We know, we signed the contract, so we know what we're getting into.
Yeah, exactly. And contracts get signed, then more contracts get signed. There's also sometimes how it goes. And you know what? That usually happens when the client doesn't know what they want, and when they won't identify certain things they should be identifying, like in those discoveries and those user stories. It's like, well, we'll worry about the edge cases later. It's like, you know what you're doing. You're putting yourself at risk right now because you don't know what you want. And it's funny because I have some stories, also personal stories, to relate to what you're saying about getting stuck in the Tesla and not necessarily knowing what you want and kind of being pushed by someone else to say, "Hey, look, like you're saying about yourself and Mark Benioff, to meditate a little bit, take 5 minutes, take 5 days, take 5 months, whatever it is. Figure it out what it is that you want, what you need, and then come back, and then we're gonna have a different conversation." And I think that's it's a lesson that goes way beyond just this space. It's been a great conversation, Emmanuel. I'm really happy we got to know each other a little bit, and I definitely want to do another deep dive with you one of these days, and maybe do a little technical session also. Maybe we'll do a technical podcast where you can show us some of those cool solutions that you've created for some of your customers, or some of that where that dev work that you used to has gotten to now, what it looks like.
Dig logins on that one, yeah.
Yeah, all right there.
No, that's great. But Ben, yeah, thank you so much. And thank you to the Titan team for building a great platform, helping Salesforce, helping all of us do what we got to do. And yeah, it's been a pleasure being on the podcast. Look forward to many more discussions and good luck with this. It's great that you're doing this. A lot of the people in the Salesforce ecosystem want to create content, but they don't want to create the stuff that's really time consuming and but really adds the value. So yeah, thank you to you and the Titan guys for really making a big effort. We thoroughly appreciate it.
Emmanuel, thanks for joining us on Salesforce Radio. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Have a great day. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Salesforce Radio. Don't forget to subscribe for more exciting discussions, expert tips, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders. Stay connected with Titan, plus the power of the planet's leading CRM. See you next time.